This podcast may contain adult themes.
This podcast is for entertainment purposes only.
The views and opinions in this podcast are expressly our own.
Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way.
Is it okay if I kick your boss's ass? That won't affect your workplace chemistry, will it?
All right, who did this? I'm not mad. I just want to know who did it so I can punish them.
When I get to the workplace, I like to fuck shit up.
Welcome to Let's Break Up, Toxic Workplace Stories, hosted by me, Nicola.
And me, Gina, both with many years working in corporate roles. Come along as we interview some awesome guests from around the world about their experiences with toxic workplaces.
Sharing lessons learned and providing safe, supportive place to share their stories with those who might be experiencing similar situations.
Each week, we will provide tips and ways to identify some of the challenges associated with toxic workplaces.
In today's episode.
Anyway, circling all the way back.
Okay, so Gail, tell us who you are, like what your background is, just very general overview, because as we talk to you, we'll get more into the nitty gritty of yes. But give us an overall overview of who you are.
So I hold on, let me get my bio.
Found it. I'm stupid.
No, you're not stupid. Don't ever say that again.
You know what? That's actually really funny. In our house, so I swear a lot. I'm a sweary mum. But in our house, the one swear word you're not allowed to say is idiot or stupid.
I like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So my almost 3-year-old the other day, I said, I hurt myself and I was like, fuck, really out loud. And she's like, she has troubles with the F's and the P's. So it's she says powers instead of flowers.
Yeah.
And so she was going, puck. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get in so much trouble if she says the actual word in school. Anyway, we digress. So Gail, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm a USA Today, Wall Street Journal bestselling author of, I moved it.
Ups and downs, power up, power down.
Power up, power down, how to reclaim control of every situation and make it a win-win. And basically the book is a guidebook on how to harness your own interpersonal power and to handle and respond properly to power dynamics in any and every situation. I'm also a Cialdini method certified trainer. Dr. Cialdini is known as the godfather of influence.
Oh, yes, with the power of persuasion.
Power of persuasion, yes. And I'm one of 12 people who have studied under him and are personally endorsed by him. There's only, out of those 12, there's only 2 females. I am the only female in the United States. So I teach those principles of influence and coach people on them.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
ChatGPT has now provided me with a bio. Would you like to?
I would like to
check if it's close or not close. Are you ready, Gail?
I would go for it.
Okay.
And then please, once she's done, tell us if you agree with it or if it's too general.
Okay. All right, here we go. Gail is a renowned author and expert in the field of personal development and leadership. With a passion for empowering individuals to take control of their lives and achieve their goals, she has become a sought-after speaker, coach, and consultant. Gail's work has been featured in numerous publications, including USA Today and the Wall Street Journal bestseller, Power Up, Power Down, How to Reclaim Control of Every Situation and Make It a Win-Win. This groundbreaking book offers practical strategies for overcoming obstacles, building resilience, and achieving successes in all areas of life. Gail's unique approach to personal growth emphasizes the importance of self-awareness, positive thinking, and effective communication. Her insights and advice have helped countless individuals and organizations achieve their full potential and realize their dreams. As a speaker and coach, Gail is known for her dynamic and engaging style, as well as her ability to connect with audiences on a deep and meaningful level. Whether she is delivering a keynote address, leading a workshop, or coaching one-on-one, Gail's energy and enthusiasm is infectious, inspiring others to take action and achieve their goals. Overall, Gail is a true leader and visionary, dedicated to helping others unlock their full potential and live their best lives. Her book, Power Up and Power Down, is a must-read for anyone looking to reclaim control of their life and achieve lasting success.
I love it. Can you send me that?
They're like, oh my God, that's amazing.
You're welcome.
The one thing I will say is it really heavily relies on like a few words. Like every time you do this, like the same words are used, like groundbreaking,
Engaging.
yeah, like it like favors certain like words. Like, I don't know. It's kind of just interesting, but yeah,
Like,
no,
you
it
know,
made you sound amazing.
I'll hand that over to my team. They'll fix up the duplicate words in a heartbeat and use that. And I'm thinking, I usually, when I speak in person, I have an intro video, and I'm thinking, oh, that video would be great because we put shots of me behind it and various things. And I'm like, that would be awesome.
Nicola, you could be a voiceover for Gail.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us what Chat CPG is kind of wild though, right? Like, how did it get that in like less than a second, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you were talking about it, it pulled things from my website too.
It did. That's what it does.
Yeah.
It like combs the internet and it pulls relevant things. Like for me, it was like LinkedIn, my company's website, whatever. So yeah, I get it. But anyways, okay. So Gail, tell us where you were when you decide, like what was going on in your life that you decided you wanted to, you know, embark on the path that you're on now? Because I can imagine you weren't always doing this and you weren't always a best-selling author and, you know, all that good stuff.
Well, you know, I have always struggled with power my entire life. I was the youngest of 4 children. 18 years older was my oldest brother. And I started out really young, feeling like I never had a voice, like I wasn't heard. And, you know, although I went on and I became very successful sitting in the C-suite, there was always something that I always felt like nobody heard me. I would express an idea and it'd be brushed over. And then a few minutes later, somebody would say exactly the same thing I just said, and everybody would think it was brilliant. And I'm like, there's got to be more to this than just me. And that's when I really started to discover power dynamics. And what a lot of people don't know too is when you struggle with power dynamics, it's in all areas of your life. And I was struggling with power dynamics and trying to make my conversations at work always be good, but I was also struggling with it on my personal life. I was dealing with an abusive husband. And it's when I realized that power is something that nobody can take from you. We actually give it away. And sometimes we do it unknowingly. And that's what I had been doing.
So how did you what industry were you working in when that scenario that you just described started happening?
So the majority of my life and my industry has been in fundraising. So I've worked in philanthropy, getting donations. So it's the ultimate selling, right? Okay, you give me your money and you don't get anything back in return. I mean, that's really what philanthropy is. So, you know, I was successful with it, but there was just some things I knew I was missing the mark on.
And how did you know that? Did people tell you, or or you just had a gut feeling, or you could see it unfolding before you?
I could see it unfolding before me. Like I said, I suggest an idea and somebody in the same meeting, you know, they brush it off and somebody would say the same thing just 2 minutes later. And everybody thought it was just brilliant and everybody was going with it. And I'm like, I just said that. And then, so I was finding that I was being, you know, kind of undervalued too, you know, and I wasn't able to bring my best self to the table. And I would leave frustrated because I knew I had more to offer and I wasn't being able to offer it.
Okay. So what was the one thing that happened that really like pushed you over the edge to kind of go on the path that you have now been on?
So I actually it was when I had the epiphany that nobody takes our power, but we give it away. And it really, my fascination with it started in my professional career when I worked at a community foundation. And the boss was the executive director. He was part-time. I was the associate executive director. I was full-time. So let me put that in perspective. Part-time, full-time. I did the majority of the work. He got the majority of the credit, right?
Right, of course.
And I was okay with that. But I was told when I took the position that if I could advance the organization, I'd be able to be moved up and get a raise. Well, I knew they had a plan and I wasn't going to be able to get moved up, but I had advanced and hit our 3-year goals in a little over a year. So because of that, and because I was bringing more money into the organization, I thought, it's time to ask for a raise. And I'll never forget, I went into his office to ask for a raise, and he looked at me and he said, well, you don't need a raise. You get child support, don't you? I was dumbfounded. I was a single mom of 2 children. And I was like, what does, getting child support have to do with the job?
And child support is like, depending on
children.
And not only, it's for the kids. And also like, it might not end up amounting to much, just like depending on your circumstances, like what your, partner, husband, the kid's father's is like, maybe he's a bum. Maybe you're getting like $10 a month. Like, who knows? Like
it was horrible. And I remember being dumbfounded on how to respond. So I went back to the normal of telling him what I'd done. And I just kept getting the same answers. And then finally, I saw on the board agenda staff raises. And I thought, well, he's going to take it to the board. But it ended up to be a raise for him and not a raise for me. And I left the organization, but I was so frustrated and so distraught. And that really caused me to start looking at power and where does this lie and how does it flow in every interaction we have. And that's when I really learned it's like this mysterious energy. It's not so much about what you say, it's about how you say it, about your tone of voice, your body language that goes with it. And then I just started studying it. And then
okay, so would you just side note, would you say that like the philanthropy, like that whole industry, do you think it's toxic?
I don't think that the industry itself is toxic. I think that there are in every industry there are toxic personalities, and I actually talk about them in my book because they pull together this toxicity that happens and it's unseen. And I believe that if we can't define it, if we can't put a label on them, we can't deal with it. And so when I wrote my book, I identified 6 toxic personalities in the workplace and how to deal with them.
Tell us. Go down the list. We love a list. Nicola and I love a good list.
I love a list, and I'm so excited.
I love a good list. I love this. We're here for this. Let's go.
The first one, and I gave them cute little names, and I did that on purpose because
is this a new deck of cards?
Yes, it is. Let's hear the names. Wait, I'm going to write them down. Hold on.
Why are you writing them down when we record?
Because I don't know. Maybe I'll draw a little sketch of something. Leave me alone, Nicola.
Actually,
Nicola, you're being a workplace bully.
Fuck right off. Of course I am.
We bully each other in weird ways all day, every day.
All day.
Gail, give us the 6. Give us the list.
Toxic personalities. And I actually have, if you want for your viewers, I actually have a PDF of them and definitions. So
yes,
we'll send that. Yes. So we'll get that in the hands of your viewers.
I don't have to write anything down, Nicola.
And I did give them cute little pictures. So you get that in the handout too. Because
nice.
Then you can remember them.
I love it. Okay.
The first one is the toxic pollinator. The second one is
explain.
You want me to explain as we go down?
Yeah, give us a little overview.
Okay.
What is the toxic pollinator?
So think about a toxic pollinator like a little bee with flowers. Okay, so a toxic pollinator is silent and you don't see them. They're hard to discover. But what you'll find is that they flutter around the office and have these little conversations with people. And they pollinate a little discord here and pollinate a little discord there, right? And then all of a sudden you come back into a meeting and everybody's emotionally charged and it kind of blows up. And you're like, what happened here? And many times the toxic pollinator is sitting on the sideline, or they're the ones that come in with the solution or the answer, but they're pollinating a little bit of trouble. And a lot of times they don't realize they're doing it. And you know, I have to tell you as a side note, we have probably all been at least one of these personalities at some point.
For sure.
Of course.
Oh,
I
right.
always say we're
So-
somebody's toxic person in somewhere in someone's story. Like,
So-
absolutely.
I always tell people, you know, don't label people and then pass them aside. But a toxic pollinator is just spreading pollen. I mean, think of a little bee fluttering around.
I have a few in mind.
Yeah. See, once you can start identifying them, you're going to see them everywhere. I see them when I saw one in the other day. I saw an insulter offloader at the grocery store yesterday. And
Wait,
you're
we
like,
haven't gotten to those personality types.
I
but-
know. So I'm going to tell you about it right now.
Okay, tell us.
An insulter offloader is somebody who delivers an insult, and as you're reeling from the emotion of the insult, they offload their work on you. Hence the insulter offloader. So what happened at the grocery store was I was watching this girl put together kind of an end cap display, right?
Yeah.
And she was, the reason I noticed her was because she seemed kind of pleased in the work she was doing, right? She kind of stepped back and looked at it and she'd get a little smile on her face and she'd continue to work a little bit more. And then one of the workers came up and said to her, well, I don't think that's what the manager wanted. And you just saw everything drain out of her face, right? And she's like, well, what am I doing wrong? And he's like, well, never mind. You don't have time to redo it. And oh, by the way, would you switch positions with me? I'm supposed to be stocking, but I want to do something up by customer service instead. And she goes, okay. And then it dawned on me that he traded her a position that was least favorable, probably a little bit more work, for one that was not quite so much work. And I saw him later on in the store kind of fluttering around the store, really doing nothing, right? Pretending to be busy. And that's an insulter offloader. They hit us at our very core. They give us an insult, and then they somehow offload the work of their work onto us. And because we're in this emotional state, we take on their work.
Right.
So
Okay, that makes more sense.
Once we understand what they are, we can start seeing them everywhere.
Right.
The third one is the negatron. Now, they're pretty easy to spot, and you're probably very familiar with the negatron, right? That's the person that is given the backhanded comments. They're the kind of rain on your parade all the time. They're the masters of deflection, right? So they're deflecting what's going on with them by making negative comments, telling you something's not going to work, or always having something negative to say. And sometimes they're inconspicuous backhanded compliments or comments, or what they'll do is
did you just say that that's what I was?
Oh my gosh.
With your backhanded compliments.
Do I do that? I was like, I probably do, and I don't even realize I'm doing it.
Oh my God, I think we need to identify which one we are.
Yeah, but we haven't heard all six, so comment down.
Ready. I'm so excited though.
Okay. I think I have been, what was it? The pollinator. What was the name of it specifically?
The toxic pollinator.
I think I've been the toxic pollinator at different times in my life at different positions, for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Gail.
And sometimes we're, like I said, we're doing this because it's survival, or we're talking to people. We don't realize what we're doing.
Right.
Okay, so the next one is the snaker. So remember the Disney movie, The Jungle Book, with the
Yeah.
the snake, right? That's like
Mhm.
wooing you in with the big eyes, right?
Yeah.
That's the snaker. Okay. So snakers are usually people who are really genuinely charming. They're very likable. They're a lot of times the life of the party. You love having them in meetings, right? Because they make the meetings seem more fun. They're usually funny, humorous, and we like being around them. But the problem with them is that there's an underlying wake with them that you may not be aware of. Okay, because although on the surface they're incredibly charming and pleasant, these kind of lighthearted jokers, they shower other people with compliments, but they will be the first that will rise up right and bite you when they need it. They're going to take every opportunity they can to steal your ideas. They're going to cut you off at the knees anytime they can. They're a master manipulator. They use their humor and their charm as a master to be able to manipulate, right, the situations, because they throw people off course because of their humor. It hides their fangs, basically.
Okay.
Right.
And then a lot of times people go, oh, no, not that person. They couldn't have possibly done that to you. They didn't throw you under the bus. So they can be really sneaky because other people don't always see them.
I feel like that was the COO in the
Yeah,
place
for
we
sure.
met. Yeah.
They're extremely dangerous for people who tend to be people pleasers, right?
Okay.
Because
I
we're
am
kind
not a
of-
people pleaser though.
I'm a people pleaser.
I'm a recovering people pleaser. Because I think that we have to get a hold of that and hold onto our boundaries. But snakers were always there. They would get me every time, right? Because I would trust them.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Okay. Was that number 3 or 4?
Let's see. We've done the toxic pollinator negatron. We did the insulter offloader, and we did the snaker. So how about the info hoarder? These people are pretty interesting. So the info hoarder uses information as their weapon of choice. So these people will give you information, but not all of it to be successful. So then a lot of times they'll withhold a piece of something you might need to know, or to actually do a full job or give a good report. And then what they'll do is a lot of times they'll come in, and because they have that piece of information, they come in with the answer or looking like they can solve the problem. And they are, again, all of these are things you don't really see at first, but once we start putting a label to them, you can start seeing them. My daughter called me last week and she goes, oh my gosh, I'm working with a bunch of info hoarders. They're not sharing the information so that we can all do our job. And I'm like, okay, you read my book. That's a good thing. I always like it when our kids read our books. But info hoarders are very interesting because they're going to hold that information. That's their weapon of choice.
Okay.
And then the last one, who I think is the silliest name there is the swoop and poop. And
I love it.
And I was the guilty swoop and poop so many times as a leader. And I had so many board members that would come in and be the swoop and poop. So this is the person that swoop and poop. Yep. Think of the bird coming in, right?
Yeah.
Swooping
just like
in,
fly by, poop and leave. Yeah.
leaving. That's exactly it. That's exactly what they do. So these people don't come in very often, but when they do, they come in, they create havoc about something that probably isn't a big deal in the first place. They get everybody in an emotional uproar, and then they leave just as fast. Okay. And then you have a team or the whole department's like reeling, like what's going on. I had a board member do this once. He was a board chair, and he came in and he made a big deal about the page numbers on the board report being recto verso. Well, I had a team. Yeah, I see the looks on your face. What in the world's recto verso? Nobody in the office knew what recto verso was either. Basically what it means in a nutshell. And then he made us all feel ignorant because we didn't know what it was, but he made this big ordeal about it. I mean, I had a team member that was just as solid could be, and she was in tears by the time he left. But basically what it is it means you have a page number on every page, even if the page is blank.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's the problem with that?
Well, the problem was she had done where she was piecing together reports, and she hadn't then went back through and put page numbers on every one, because she'd have the finance report and then she'd have some other report from somebody else, and she was putting it together in the board packet. And he was saying, no, it had to be recto verso, meaning there had to be a page number consistent all the way through the thing. Not anything that's going to mess up or impact the board report or the information. Basically, it had nothing to do with anything. But
yeah, that's like very
amazing.
Yeah.
But he had made such a big deal about it that the entire team spent the entire afternoon. He came in like at 11 o'clock. We got absolutely nothing done the rest of the day. I was calming the team down. So we have to be careful. And sometimes leaders are really, really bad at being the swoop and poop, right? They come in, they swoop in, they say, oh, this, and this, and then they're gone just the same. And they kind of leave everybody in an uproar. So
that was every day where we met.
I feel like that was the CEO, not the COO. The COO.
No, that was the CEO. That was the CEO.
CEO would come in and be like,
oh no, I want to do this and it has to launch in a week. And I'm like, we can't even get
wait, what?
in a week. Like, what the fuck?
Like, okay, I just won't ever sleep again. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I know. And then like you'd go through all of the process to get them everything on time. And then at the last minute, they'd be like, oh no, I don't want that anymore.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a swoop and poop.
Okay.
Yep. They're getting their power by creating this havoc with everybody else.
Yeah.
Or they just don't, or half the time she wouldn't even remember what she said.
Oh no.
I feel like
that's why I said we had to like just wait it out for a minute, like take a beat and then get on our real work.
So how did you deal with her?
Okay, so for me, Gina had a different approach, right? So for me, because I was very close to the CEO, or I thought I was,
nobody was. I think that's her charismatic charm. I bet you the COO isn't even as close as she pretends to be. Do you know what I mean?
For sure. Anyway, so the way I dealt with it is I tracked kind of the upswings and the downswings, and I knew kind of when the upswings were coming or when this like intensity was going to come, and then I would make sure that my kind of decks were clean so that I could just hop to attention and drop everything that I was doing. Sometimes it didn't work as well as I had planned, but usually I would like front load with, I'm prepared to take on whatever you're dropping today. So let's go.
Yeah, I just would be like, no, it's impossible. We can't do it. And she didn't like that approach. She did not. She was definitely someone who liked to be pleased all the time. And I would just be like, that's absolutely impossible. I can't do any of that. Like, that's just not how this works. So yeah.
I always tell people to do two things. Well, actually 3 things with a swoop and poop, right? That remind them that they can't always, get back what happened, but that they can choose to respond next time instead of react. And then the second one, which you had mentioned, prepare for it to happen. Be aware it's going to happen. And the third thing is, realize that it's not going to happen very often. These people use the premise of scarcity to get their power. If they did it every day, it's not going to have the same effect. So by only coming in every once in a while. So,
but like reflecting on these, so is that all 6 of them? Did we just kind of?
That's all 6.
Yeah.
That's all 6.
I feel, Gina, I feel like you're none of those.
Okay, I think the 2 that spoke to me, and that maybe I'm not this now, but I think I had been in, before I matured and have as much experience as I do now.
The had mixed bags of feelings.
Yes. So I think I was probably the toxic pollinator.
Okay.
And I think the info hoarder, but I don't think I hoarded info. I think that's just the way I am. I'm like, they don't need, like, this person is only doing this thing. They don't really need that information. So I'm probably lazy under the guise of efficiency. So I'm not going to go into explain all of this. Like, I don't think it's a malicious thing that I do. I just am like, it's more efficient for me just to tell you what you need to know to get your job done. So I don't know if that's actually being an info hoarder or I don't know.
Well, and I think that we have to realize that, you know, these are things that help us become better. I mean, what I love about these toxic personalities is that I can think about now as I'm dealing with people, oh, I want to make sure I'm giving them everything they need. So the simple question at the end for an info hoarder is, as you know, do you have the information you need to get everything done you need to get done? And just simply asking those questions to make sure you don't fall into one of these toxic personalities. And the thing is, we're all going to mess up, but the idea is when we can put a name on them, then we can actually deal with other people with those, or we can make sure that we're not those. Because there's tactics to deal with all of them.
Who do you think you have been though, Nicola?
That's what I'm like thinking. I'm like, I kind of look at it. I've never been an info hoarder. I can't be an info hoarder. I've got information that I've got to share with everyone. That's been my job my whole life.
In fact, I think you've given, like, when we've worked together in the past, like, you probably gave me more information that I needed, and I like tuned out at some point. I was just like,
it's equal opportunity information.
I think you could have been a toxic pollinator.
I feel like I could have had toxic pollination moments, but I feel like the rest of them don't really, unless I'm just completely oblivious to my toxicity, but I don't feel like the rest of them really resonate with the way that I lead people.
Well, so I will say, you might not have led your team like this, but sometimes you and I would have interactions at the place that we met, and you would insult my team and then offload work just to my team, though. I don't think you were like that across the board. I just don't think you liked my team, period.
Touche.
Right? Because she'd be like, we need XYZ and I need it now. And I'm like, okay, to now might not happen. And she'd be like, well, your designer should know this. And I'd be like, I don't know why they don't know it. I've only been here for like 3 weeks. Let me see how quickly.
I've been here for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm like, let me just see how quickly I can get this to you. But I think that was just more out of frustration.
Yeah, I think because, you know, realistically, we had struggles with that team for a really long time, and we needed they were information hoarders, right? They didn't want to share any of their work, and we needed it to be able to do our work, which was challenging. So there was frustration long before you came along.
Yeah, so I just kind of walked into this situation where I was now looked at like the bridge between everyone, like my team, who I guess had been notorious. I think they weren't information hoarders. I think they just didn't know what the hell they were doing. Yeah. Okay.
But then that creates toxicity in itself. You have that, and it just breeds more toxicity, right? It's like this big snowball effect, and then nobody gets anything done, and nobody's happy.
And that's exactly what this company that Nicola and I met at was like. It was just like such a mess. Like anytime I really stop to think about it, like my mind gets like fuzzy because there was so much mess, and there is so much mess. And I'm just like, how did I even last in that environment for the 4 months that I did? Like, I can't.
How did I last for the 4 years that I did?
You drank the Kool-Aid there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You drank the Kool-Aid. Okay, so anyway, Gail, back to you. So what are your suggestions when you meet these people, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life? Like how do we
antidote this shit show?
All right, that's what I love. So we already talked about how to antidote a little bit of the swoop and poop.
Right.
I just can't with the name.
I know.
It's so good. I love it. That was my favorite. I will never forget it.
Puts the image in your brain, and I'm like,
it does.
That's exactly it. And I'm
gonna tell Nicola she's doing the swoop and poop every single day for the rest of our lives. All right. So tell us, what's the antidote?
That's exactly why I did it, so we could remember them, right?
Yeah, it's great.
Oh my God.
So for the toxic pollinator, right, there's a principle in persuasion and influence called consistency. And that consistency principle basically says that we want to remain consistent with things we've previously taken a stand on, right? It creates interpersonal pressure to do something different than what we've taken a stand on. So we sometimes call people who aren't this way like wishy-washy, right?
Yeah.
They don't know what they want. But we all have it inside of us. It's a natural tendency. So with the toxic pollinator, the best way to deal with them is to remind them of positive things they've said, because they've probably said positive things in meetings, but to remind those and bring those back to the forefront. The interesting thing about us is that we can slip into bad patterns because we think people should know the obvious, right? But people don't. We're busy in our lives. We don't see the obvious that's in front of us. So what we want to do with them is to bring up all the great things they've had to say about the company or that they've had to say in meetings back to their conscious level. And then kick in this consistency principle.
Okay, can you give us an actual example of how you might have used this? Because I think it's a heady concept, but I think if we make it anecdotal, myself, and I'm sure Nicola and our listeners might remember it better.
Absolutely. So the one that comes to mind is Charlie, right? Charlie would be in the meetings and he'd go around then after the meetings. And it was hard for me. I was a consultant when I discovered Charlie. It was hard to find him, right? Because he'd have meetings with people and he'd like pollinate rumors and kind of half truths. So I would watch to see him having these meetings and how people were when they came out of the meetings. And he wasn't a bad guy, okay? He was just pretty negative. So what I did was when we were in meetings, I would bring up things that he had said. So when we would get together in a meeting, I'd say, remember, Charlie, you said how great it was that the whole team works together, or how awesome it was, because in the meetings, he would be positive. And what I would do is bring that to his conscious level and the conscious level of everybody in the team, not in a confronting way, because my book is all about to avoid the power struggles, because here's what happens, right? We get pushed, we push back. And then you end up in this power struggle and nothing gets accomplished. So you want to be able to do these with him. You would power up and start reminding him of all the great things he had said and doing that in a public setting. And it eventually diminished. It took about 2 weeks, but the pollination stopped. You want to power up with him, right? So you power up with a toxic pollinator. With a snaker, on the other hand, right? A snaker, you don't power up with a snaker. Because if you do, you're going to get bit. So you power down with a snaker.
Okay, what does that actually mean?
So let me explain power up, power down. That'll help you. So when we talk about power up, power down, it's about using that space between a stimulus and a response. So when we power up, it's changing our stance. It's changing our tone of voice. It's everything about us that kind of powers up in the situation, right? To hold our own power. Powering down, on the other hand, doesn't mean you're giving power away. What it means is you're changing your stance to make people feel more comfortable, to put them at ease so you don't get into this power struggle. A snaker is already pushing, so if you push back, you're going to get a power struggle, and it's not going to come out nicely for you with a snaker because they jump up and bite you. So with a snaker, you just keep a watchful eye on these people, and then what you do is you make sure that you protect your material. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you want to make sure that you're not trusting them with vital information and not confronting them head on. So you want to protect your work, your ideas. You never, ever want to share frustration at work with a snaker. They will use
Well,
it.
I've done that before by accident.
Yep.
Like I was so
Oh my God,
frustrated.
this is
and it would,
totally
like, bubble.
that COO.
I would get so frustrated in my position, Gail, that, and she and I would be talking about something work-wise, and then I would like just accidentally say something, like my frustration would boil over. And what I realized what she was doing, she was like, she would never say anything to implicate herself, right? But she would take that information and run right back to my direct manager and tell on me.
Which is
I realized that after the fact. I was like, I was so like, I don't know if it was just that I was so frustrated, or was I so dumb to have trusted her? Like, what was, like, I don't know.
Well, they seem charming at first, so don't be too hard on yourself, right? So you're naturally going to gravitate towards these people because they're charming. You know, remember that snake, right? Their eyes are like, ooh, I'm gonna woo you in. That's what we're talking about. So as long as you're mindful about how much information you share with them and who you share it with, the other thing with the snaker is make sure and keep your emotions intact and in check. They are wonderful at reading and exploiting emotions and body language, and they will call you out in a meeting.
Yeah,
So,
they'll throw you under the bus. They'll be the first ones to throw you under the bus. And that is Miss Lots of Teeth from my team.
Yep.
Yeah.
They'll be the very first ones there. So just be aware of them. Once you can be aware of them, then you can protect yourself. Make sure you don't get bit.
Right. All right. What's next?
The insulter offloader. Remember, they're the ones that insult you and you're kind of rolling in the insult, doubting your self-confidence, your worth, right? So the best thing you can do with them is to hold your boundaries. First of all, don't let your emotions get in play, but then hold your boundaries. Don't let them throw work over no matter what. There's no reason why you should be taking on work. And you can do that very nicely, right? And be able to say, hey, thanks, but that's not it's not where I was assigned today. That would be so easy for the girl in the grocery store to say, hey, that's not where the boss assigned me today. Sorry, I can't do that for you. But I see this all the time. The negatron is basically don't take their negative comments personally. If you
Love
don't
that one, right, Nicola?
internalize their negative comments, they lose all of their power.
Right.
So just make sure you don't take it personally.
Okay.
And don't don't get into arguments or power struggles with them trying to convince them differently. The premise is we only have the power to change ourselves. We can't change anybody else. But if we can change ourselves and how we react and respond, we can change the interaction. And when you change the interaction, that's when you can change your workplace.
I told Nicola this story or this little saying that it says, I can't change the carpeting of the world, but I can change my slippers. And it's such, right? So it's like, and this is what I had to learn with my own business partner. I had to go back into therapy because every time I interacted with him, I walked away feeling like I was the dumbest person on the planet. Everything was my fault. I was a horrible person. I barely should be alive. Like he had that ability to do that. And I just finally was like, this is not right. Like every time I speak to him, I end up in tears. So we are still business partners and our interaction has gotten so much better because I changed.
Well, and there's other things you can do. So in my book, I talk about a peacock, right? And that peacock can be full feathers or train tucked in. So you can actually power up in a situation by taking up more space, just like from the animal kingdom. Put your feathers out like a peacock, right? And taking up more space. Did you just see what else I did? I leaned backwards, right?
Yeah.
Took up more space, leaning backwards. If you watch politicians and powerful people on TV, you will watch that many times they take up lots of space, so it makes a difference. Lower tone of voice. I tell people, watch your tone of voice, because when we get emotional, our tone of voice goes up. The way to counteract that is to talk on the out breath. I tell this to salespeople, you know, you pick up the phone, you go, hello, or you can go, hello. There's a big difference in your tone of voice. So you take a breath and you talk on the out breath.
Okay. That's a good little tip there. I like that.
Yeah. It calms you down. That and the 4-second breath. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds. It calms your body, brings you back to a place of center. You're only talking about 16 seconds. Nobody realizes it unless you make a like this when you're doing it.
Unless it's like an exaggerated breath. Yeah.
And it gives you a chance to gain control of your emotions.
Okay. So like a pause, in other words, like pause.
It's like a pause, but it's more than a pause, because when you oxygenate yourself, you're oxygenating your brain. And when you do that, you think clearer. So people talk about a pause, and a pause is strategic. I mean, and it can be, you can use that in maintaining your own interpersonal power. But when you do the 4-second breath, it helps you gain control and think clearer in every situation.
Okay. I like that. And what about the info hoarder? How do you combat them?
The info hoarder is, don't take information at face value. Okay.
Okay.
Always seek additional clarification. And if you have to, go to somebody in authority that makes sure, or an expert to make sure that they have the subject on hand, to make sure you know everything that you need to know. Once you realize these, you'll like an info hoarder, that'll only happen to you once before you realize it's going on, and then you'll start doing it. Once you have the names, it really helps.
Yeah, it does.
Because it makes it easier to identify them completely. Okay, who was our last one? Do we have any other ones in there?
No, we had, well, the Negatron. Yeah, don't take their negative comments personally. Swoop and poop. Did we actually talk about that? Or
yes, we did. We came up with planning and delivery so that you are prepared for the pooping.
Yep.
Oh, right.
The swooping and the pooping.
The swooping and the pooping. And they use scarcity, so you won't see them very often.
Which is helpful, probably the best one.
Yeah, please go. Please leave. We have enough.
It's not micromanaging, it's just pooping.
You know, and once you know that that's what they're going to do when they come in, you can be prepared for it.
I love that. These have been so what's the word I'm looking for? Insightful. They've been so insightful, because I think we've all had a workplace where we can identify these humans, right? Yeah, so many. And I think it's really kind of categorized them well into kind of something that's a little bit more palatable for people to kind of go, okay, I'm dealing with pooper scooper.
Or I'm dealing with a negatron, and I don't have to give away my energy trying to change it. I can keep my energy on dealing with myself, because I can really only change myself. I was going to say, sometimes in conflict and situations, you will see different personalities come out in different ways, right? So I had a problem with the car dealership, and I saw the same person, you know, try to be a swoop and poop and try to be a negatron and then be an info hoarder, in smaller increments, of course. But that's what's so great about being able to have the tools, the power tools, to deal with them, because you can always interact with them and change the way you interact.
Tell us how you came up with these. Like, were you? Go ahead, Nicola.
What was the process behind, like, how did you, like, what had you seen that kind of led you down this kind of path of toxic doom?
Well, you can't talk about interpersonal power, right? And how to hold your interpersonal power without talking about how to deal with toxic personalities. And I might add, I know this is a workplace show, but I might add, you probably have some of these personalities in your family.
Oh,
you know,
poor bloody.
So, I mean, you encounter them everywhere. And what I did is, I wanted to actually, because you can't deal with something you can't name and identify. And when I started sitting back and watching, and I would collect situations of teams. So I work a lot with teams and creating a good working environment for teams. And as I was determining what some of the problems they were having, some of these were just bubbling to the surface. And that's when I started to say, okay, we're gonna not make it so heavy. We're going to give cute little names and then be able to remember them and then deal with them from there. It really was just observation from my own experience and then my clients that I worked with.
So how did you implement any of this for yourself? Like,
I've implemented all of these. They didn't go in the book. The book was actually written as a guidebook to help people hold and harness their own interpersonal power in any and every situation. So everything that's in the book, I've tested out. Either all of them have been tested out personally, but I've also used them in my consulting and with my teams to make sure that they were viable to be used. So yeah, they work. And I went in and I said, I'm only going to use the principles I have listed in my book because I have a chart of powering up and powering down. And power is this mysterious energy that ebbs and flows. So I would do this kind of dance. I would spread out at times. I would lean forward. I'd play with my tone of voice. I'd play with my eye contact. And I would go back and forth as I needed to based on what the other person was doing to avoid a struggle and to keep my emotions in check. And I have to tell you, not only did they solve the problem, I had the manager call me the next day and say, hey, I hear we really dropped the ball with you, but my team said you were great to deal with. And I'm laughing because I'm like, all I did was use these techniques. and I wanted to make them so that people could actually implement them in 5 minutes.
That makes sense though. And that's something I appreciate about how the kind of the simplicity of it.
Before we wrap up, can you tell us what are you doing now besides writing cool books that have cool characters in them like the Swoop and Poop?
I consult and I coach and train. So everything I do isn't research based. So I help get people from 0 to 60 to make sure that they're all the soft skills are where they need to be, which is where it usually hangs up most people from getting what they want, their dreams, and getting that accomplished. So when I do personal coaching, I focus a lot on that, on influence and being empowered. I train on diversity, equity, inclusion, generations in the workplace, customer service, sales, power dynamics, teamwork. So I do that. And then of course, a lot of times I speak on the book.
I feel like this has kind of set a foundation for us for other episodes as well.
Yeah, like we could be like, oh, that's a Swoop and Poop. That's a Negatron.
Yeah. And that's a Negatron. I feel like this has kind of set up like a whole new conversation. We may have to get you back.
I'd love to come back. And is it okay for me to offer a way for your viewers to get a digital access to the book so they can read it in depth? We'll give them the PDF, but
yeah.
Why the hell not?
No, we want to tell everyone where you can be found. So tell us where you can be found.
Well, I can be found GailRudolph.com or on Facebook, Gail Rudolph author. So you can just Google my name, I come up. But what I want to be able to do is I am doing a special, and I want to make sure that you have access to it for $1. My book's normally sold for $18, but for $1, you can get immediate digital access to the book. And then also you get a video training on how to be liked by everybody. So we're going to talk about how to produce dopamine in people's brains when you first meet them so that they like and remember you.
As a people,
and then we're going to do a 3-day challenge to talk about making sure that your body's not calling your mouth a liar with the words coming out, right? That you're not giving.
That's me. That's me. I do not have a poker face. Like my mom
I don't have a
was
poker face either.
No, my mom would be like, boy, she always tells me, if you don't like someone, they know. And I'm like, really? Because I always thought I was like very like, like mysterious. She was like, oh no. I mean, and I do know I have that side of me. Like if I don't like someone, they will know. But there are times where I don't want that to be shown, but this has other ideas.
So all anybody has to do is go to gailgift.com, GAILGIFT.com. We're asking for $1 processing fee just to help, process it. But the information you're getting is invaluable, and I can guarantee you're not getting it anywhere else. But it explains the toxic personalities. There's a chapter on each toxic personality and how to deal with them with examples in the book. So if you go to gailgift.com and get that you'll have instant access. So it's not something you have to wait for. And that way everybody can succeed. Learn from my mistakes. Come on.
I know. That's what I tell my daughter's nanny. She started as an au pair, but now she's a live-in nanny, and she's like 22, I think. And she'll be like freaking out over something, and I'll be like, don't do what I did. Do this instead. And it's like, I'm like, man, I wish I had a me for me back in the day when I was 22.
I wish I had a me for me.
I know. Wouldn't it be awesome?
Yes. I'm like, she's like reaping all the benefits of all my dumbass mistakes. Like, yeah, I know.
Well,
anyway.
That's what this book is. My dumbass mistakes and then how to overcome them,
But
right?
now, like, we're
I feel like that's the alternative cover name.
learn from my dumbass mistakes.
That's right.
I like it. But wait, I have a question. Just when you were like, how to get everyone to like you, does it involve complimenting people?
No, it does not.
It's just
it involves actually creating dopamine in the other person's brain. So dopamine's the chemical we have in our brain. It makes us feel good. And there are ways to actually create dopamine in the other person's brain by in the first 4 seconds you meet them.
Okay, what can you give us an example? Because now
I have a feeling
inspiring
it's a
minds
giant
must know.
smile. It's a smile.
So for one thing is, do not ask how somebody is. How are you? Because
okay, what do you say instead?
What's the answer?
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm fine.
Busy. Good.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is our brains go into automatic mode, right? And we go into what I call fast thinking, and we just kind of glaze over. And what we want to do is we want to move people out of fast thinking into slow thinking and create dopamine. The best way to create dopamine is to get them to think about something that they like.
Oh.
So, I gave you
something nice about your day today.
Well, kind of, but I would go a little bit deeper. Do you have anything exciting that you're doing over the weekend? And then I give a couple more on the video training. So I don't want to give that completely away.
But how can you translate that into can you
oh my God, am I just so toxic in my brain that you're like, tell me something exciting you're doing this weekend, and I'm like, fucking sleeping. Bitch, please, I'm sleeping all weekend.
No, but what happens is the person you ask, it's not their answer. It's important to them.
It's the process of what they're thinking about.
Right. So Dr. John Medina, who is a psychologist, a developmental psychologist, I believe this is
Medina. What?
John Vagina? No, it's Medina.
Or
Medina.
Medina, vagina, whatever.
Same.
Same.
Right.
Yeah.
But he actually talked about that when you create dopamine in somebody's brain, if you can create dopamine in their brain, they actually put a little Post-it note right there, and they remember that they like you and they remember you. So if you're trying to sell a business or you're trying to get somebody to do business with you, you want to create dopamine because it's like little Post-it note right there that you're likable and they're going to remember you.
So I have a question. So for instance, my business is mainly over emails. It's very rare that a client calls me anymore. Like maybe back in the early days, they would. Like nobody's using their phone. You're lucky to get like an email response. You're lucky to get a text message. How can you create dopamine via texts or emails?
By the way, so what you're trying to do is, well, you may not be able to create as much dopamine, but you can create different feelings in a text. So there are different words you can use to create friendliness and warmthness. Like just, hi friend, can't wait for us to get together, and brainstorm. I'm so looking forward to hearing your ideas on things. So you can create this warmth in the email so that people respond. That's interesting because I have a list of competent words and friendly words, because I did a white paper not too long ago that said that women in the workplace are either viewed as being competent or they're viewed as being friendly, but very rarely are they viewed as both. And
I would agree with that, because I
Yep.
think people wouldn't automatically say, like, Nicola, now that she knows me, maybe she would say that I'm like nice and friendly, but I'm like a little tough nut
You're a
to
little
crack.
prickly.
I can be, but it's not because I'm not friendly. It's just I'm more of the type of person that likes to
Just cut to the
observe.
meat and potatoes.
I like
Right.
to
So-
observe and then figure out where I'm gonna like warm up to, like figure out who my people is, where it's warm. Do you know what I mean?
So
So
you
I'm
can't-
not. Yeah, go ahead.
You can't see it, but behind me, I have a list of warm words and competent words. And
Mhm.
I will pick which ones I want to choose in emails. If I want to be more friendly, I will use words like, hi friend, let's connect, cheers, I'm open, together, excited, collaborate, happy to be here, best, those
Okay.
types of things. If I want to be more competent, I do things like productive, let's brainstorm, effective, get ready, we'll power through. That's one of my favorite ones. We'll power through.
Okay.
Efficient, lead, knowledge, streamlined. Those are words that are more competent.
Okay.
And I have to say, one of my biggest pet peeves now is our schedules, right? We're going to get together and have a meeting. Oh my gosh, it is probably the biggest opportunity to create and prepare people for the meeting ahead. It's called persuasion. Dr. Cialdini talks about it. But instead of saying we're going to have a one-on-one meeting, how about we're going to have a brainstorming meeting, or we're going to have a collaboration meeting?
As
Touche.
Gail
And go-
pointed out.
And go claim the book and the information for
Yes.
GailGift.com. You can't beat it.
No, you can't. That's a great deal. So I'm very excited. And maybe people who actually do go get the Gail gift,
Tell us about your.
tell us about it. Call our number. Tell
Yes.
us what you
Call
thought
our
about
number,
it.
Like, where the fuck are you calling?
Didn't you have a number that you put on? Okay.
It's
Goodbye.
just a voice message service.
Well, that's what I mean. Whatever. Everybody understands what I mean. Please, Nicola, leave me alone.
This is amazing. Great chat. Good chat. Thanks.
All right. Well, it has been a good chat. I'm gonna go
Been a
spend some time with my
pleasure,
daughter.
ladies. All right. Well, I'll let you guys do the schedule. It's been a pleasure. We'll get together. Gina, why
Yes,
don't we
we
get
will.
together for drinks sometimes? We can
Absolutely.
we can
We can
like,
call
take her-
Nicola.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say we can like Zoom her in and she can join us too. You have to
Yay.
get your own drinks there though.
That's fine.
She'll be
I
all
will
right.
email her the drink.
She'll pull through. She'll pull through, Gail. She'll figure it out.
Then we can get really silly.
Yeah.
Sounds
Okay.
great. Thank you guys. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
Alrighty.
you, Gail.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us today. If you would like to share your story, we would love to hear from you.
Also, leaving a review helps us create more content because it shows us there's an interest in this topic.
For those of our listeners who do better with reading, we have closed caption available on YouTube.
See you next week, same time and same place.